Hello, I'm Emma of Granola Gear, and I'm so excited to be chatting with you again today about what I have been knitting on lately. I finally finished a big project, and I feel so good now because it was like really weighing me down in like the progress that I wanted to make on other things. I've been working on it for like a year, so I'm super duper psyched to show you that today. But I'm going to start with what I'm wearing, and that is a Monday sweater by Petite Knit. But this one's a little funky looking because it's knit in all mini skeins that I picked up at the thrift store, and it's held with a strand of Drops Kid Silk mohair in just the color Chuck. So just the bright white color. I love this sweater. It's one of my favorite things that I've made. I don't wear it all the time because it is kind of crazy. So it's got to be the right outfit, the right day, the right vibe. But I felt like it today. It is actually quite warm despite being a really light fabric. I'm not always the biggest mohair fan, but I will say with something like this, where the mini skeins are a superwash and they are a fingering weight, this plumps it up a little bit, but it also brings that warmth that a fingering weight superwash might not have on its own. So on a chilly day like today, because it is quite cold out there today, this is helping keep me warm without the bulk of like a worsted or Aran weight yarn that I might have under a jacket or whatever. It might be a little bit too much. So this is perfect. So I'm really happy about this. I love this sweater. It's like I have two Monday sweaters that I've done something similar with. I think it is such a fantastic pattern for like just messing around with because it's so simple. I mean, you could do it with really any raglan or circle yoke pattern, but for me, this is the one that I tried it on first, and so I love the fit and the design of it, and it works well with my kind of funky playing with yarns, which I haven't done a lot of this winter season, but I'm gonna get back into it soon. I promise. I'm just working through some stash that I purchased early on, and I'm almost through it. Uh, so let's get into the first thing today, which is my finished objects. And this guy is finished except for there's like a small thing I need to sew onto it, but I'm going to leave it for right now. And when it's done, because this is a gift knit and I have given it to the person, I'll put up a picture of it finished, but we're just going to call it good for now. And that is something I've been showing for a very long time because I started it last year. And that is the 5219A sweater, which is a Drops design pattern. I'll put in a clip of me wearing it just so that you have a reference because it just looks oversized on me. This is an amazing, beautiful colorwork design. I wouldn't necessarily recommend the pattern because, like many Drops free patterns, it's a little kooky, especially with all the steeking. Like this front slit was steeked, the armholes were steeked. It can be confusing. I had to like copy and paste the pattern into a Google Doc and format it so that I could like read it because it's so hard. They just give you like a massive text and then you have to figure it out. So it was kind of crazy, but I knit this in Drops Charisma, which is a super wash, and a DK weight yarn. I'll clasp the two hooks I have on there. They're kind of hard to do, but I guess most of the time they'll be unclipped. In a navy and a white. Wow, can't get these back on. There we go. Yeah, this took me over a year because I put it down for the summer because obviously I was not in the mood to work on it in the summertime. Last video, I had not yet assembled the sleeves, I don't think, but they are now attached. I also previously, I'll show you the inside. So I had steeked the armholes and I had sewn down the collar, I think, before. The collar is attached and you knit it long enough that you can fold it over the edges and sew it down. One thing on the sleeves that I hadn't done originally was it told you to knit a bunch of selvage at the end of the sleeve because the sleeves are knit bottom up in like a purl. And I didn't really realize, I thought that was just for sewing on to have extra. I didn't realize at first that that was actually to sew over your steeked edges, which I was planning to cover my steeked edges in some other way originally. But I was like, oh, I guess that is a lot easier. So I went back and I knit on more of the selvage edge so that I could cover my steeked edges. So it's nice and tucked in there, as you can see on the inside. And it's knit in purl if you're facing the right side, but then on the inside it's knit, so it's nice and smooth. This is a little bulky, but I don't think that that affects, like you can kind of see it, but I don't think it really affects the fit or how it like sits when it's on you. So that's fine. It's not too crazy. What was the other thing? Oh yeah, for part of why I hadn't made the selvage as long as it said originally, because it said to knit 2 centimeters of selvage, was because it was telling you to knit it in purl. And so when I went back and did it and I picked up those stitches again, I just did like a German short row double stitch, flipped it, and then knit it from the inside so that I was knitting on the knit side instead of the purl side, which made it a little less annoying. So yeah, and I don't know if in the last podcast you could see these clips super well because I didn't put my hand behind it in the little Instagram thing, but now they're on something so you can see them better. I picked up these clips vintage on Etsy. They were like, it was like $5 plus shipping, and they're so cool with the Olympic rings and the NOK for Norway. As you can see, I only have one clip on here. And I think in the original there were 3, but it's kind of hard to actually find these like tin pewter clasps online. And I'm not sure if my brother would like the full clasp look. So my thought is I'm going to add hooks and eyes down here that are a little more invisible. And then that can clasp these parts on the bottom more, and these will probably always be open, I'm assuming. I don't think he's going to clasp that all the way to the top. So these are more decorative right up here. Yeah, and I finally sewed down the edge here, the folded edge. When I had him try it on, I was like, do you want a ribbing here? Like, do you want me to undo this and do a ribbing? And he's like, no, this is fine. And I was worried about how it would look. Like, I was worried it would be way too big on him, but I think the folded edge does look fine when I had him try it on. So that is good. I'm really happy that none of my color work is like super loosey goosey post blocking. There's a lot of floats that I had to catch all through this because it's like 7 stitches in between each little white stitch, but it worked out fine. You can't really see them. Like, you can maybe see the bumps or a little bit, but it's not super crazy. I don't love Drops Charisma, I will say. I probably would not choose to work with this again, but it was a suggested yarn and it was on sale at the time, so I decided I'd just go with it when I bought it, which was like a year ago. But I'm happy with how this turned out. I have some leftover yarn in the original pattern. I think it's a dark gray and a white, but it's flipped so that the blue is the white and the white is the blue, which I did it the other way around because I liked the blue dominant better. And with that, originally the color also would have been white, but I switched it to the blue because I wanted it to be more blue dominant. I didn't want like a bright white color. And I think it looks a lot better like that, which means I have a lot more white left over than I have blue. But yeah, I did ribbing on the sleeves, which it was supposed to be a folded hem, but I thought ribbing would look better, and I think it does look better. My ribbing was kind of small because I started with the suggested number of stitches for the folded hem, and it was actually really quite small. So when I blocked it, I like stretched it a lot at the edges just to make sure. My husband can fit his hand through it, so it should be fine for my brother, but just to make sure, it's maybe a little small at the sleeve, but yeah. So I'm really excited about this. I know he's really excited about this. It's kind of psycho for me to knit someone as a gift a sweater like this before I've knit myself a sweater like this. But I wanted my like kind of Christmas present for everyone last year was supposed to be that I was knitting everyone a sweater, and I wanted to knit things for people that they really, really would love and wear, and I felt like fit them. And my youngest brother, I was talking to my husband about it the other day. He's got a lot of pizzazz. Not in like a weird way. He's just like, I don't know. He's kind of a hipster, not really, but sort of. Like, he wears funky sweaters. Like, not funky, but he has this one L Bean sweater that is in this traditional, like, it's all over this, basically exactly the same. So I felt that he would wear this and he would love this. So I'm happy to give this to him. He takes care of his clothes really well, and it's super washed, so I'm not super worried about that. So I'm happy about it. I will get it to him soon. When I do, I will put a picture in the podcast of him wearing the whole thing. But yeah, it was a really fun project. It took me about a year probably of just working on it off and on. It wasn't always my priority, but I have to say I'm very glad to have it done. Don't have to work on it anymore. I did all the finishes. Like, there was one Saturday that I just sat down and I cranked. I sewed on the sleeves. I sewed down all the edges and like did all of the weaving in of the ends, which is what I was really dreading because honestly, this Drops Charisma is like kind of slippery when it comes to like securing the ends. So they sort of had to get like knotted pretty aggressively. Sorry, I just saw some like looser ones. It's fine. It's fine. I'm not gonna worry about it. Yeah, I had to kind of like knot the ends a little aggressively to make sure that they weren't going to come undone, but I think it's fine. I think it's all safe. Most of the ends are tucked into the edges and all that, so they won't have anything messing with them. So yeah, I'm really happy with this project. I definitely still want to knit myself like a cardigan that's steeked in a similar style. I just have to find a pattern that I like. There is one that I like, but it's a sinus garn pattern, so you have to buy all the yarn to get the pattern, and I'm just not going to do that. I'm not going to spend $200 on yarn just for a pattern. That's crazy. Not that you can't do it. You can do whatever you want. I'm not gonna personally. um, but yeah, that is my one finished object. After all that talking, let's talk about whips. And I'll start with one really quick thing that's just an update. It's not really like anything specific. I have been working on a baby blanket slowly but surely when I have the motivation, and I just finished a square. This is just my second square. The fourth square, it's gonna be like 3 plain squares and 1 square of the Stella quilt cushion. That's my goal. And this actually used like almost a whole skein of one of those like big worsted weight, just like acrylic Michaels yarns, which was really surprising. Like how much, I guess that's pretty thick, but like I did not expect there to be only a teeny tiny ball of that left. So I think I might have to do the Stella quilt part, which was supposed to be, I'm doing 2 white squares, 1 pink square, and then the Stella quilt cushion in, it was supposed to be just white and pink, but I don't think I have enough pink to do 2 colors. So I think I have a third color that I think I'm gonna have to use in that and have it be like pink, white, and green. Because I'm worried I won't have enough of pink. But that's just that. Next is this guy, my Esther jacket, which I'm pretty far along on. This is and the Stella quilt cushion, if you don't know, which I'm assuming most people do know, is a pattern by Laura Penrose. But Esther jacket, petite knit pattern. I'm knitting this in some beautiful yarn that was gifted to me, which is the original yarn that the pattern was knit in, which is the Isager Jensen and Highland wool. So this is a very special project for me because the yarn was a gift and it was from a trip my in-laws went on. And it's the first time I've ever knit with Isager. First time I've ever knit with suggested yarn. It's just, I really love this pattern. I think it's such a beautiful vintage style design. It feels very heirloom, and that's kind of why I picked the white, because that's just how it feels. What was I going to say? This is supposed to be knit on the 5mm needles. I got gauged with like a 5.5, but it's still maybe a little small. This is like a worsted Aran weight pattern. As you can see, I finished both sleeves. I just finished the first one and worked on the second one and the last one, and I'm actually most of the way through the body. But I kind of feel like the body is short, even though I'm like definitely at the length it's supposed to be. So I'm thinking what I'm going to do is I'm going to knit the ribbing to the length it's supposed to be, and then I'm going to put it on cords before binding it off, and then I'm going to block it. So then it's at the max body length that it's going to be, but I don't have to unpick the bind off if I feel like it's much too short. That's kind of what I'm thinking. I really have become someone who almost never finishes a whole project before blocking. I pretty much always block, because if I feel like there's something wrong with a project, or I'm not sure about the size or like how it's looking, the first thing I tell myself to do is just stop, put everything on hold, and block it. If it fixes the problem, yay, we can move on. We don't have to worry about it. We don't have to frog it when it's all the way done. If not, then we haven't like gone all the way before figuring it out. Like it's like a check and balance of, I knit a bunch and then I'm like, and instead of just frogging it or keeping going, we block, we take some time, we think about it, we look at it, we try it on, and then we make our decision. So I think that's where I'm at with this right now. When I tried it on, the sleeves were a little short, but I think that does have to do with the texture. I do plan on stretching this a little bit when it blocks, not a ton, but I'm gonna pin it out instead of just like laying it dry, I think. Because this armhole is maybe a little small for this sleeve, which I was actually quite skeptical about, but it is exactly the length that it was supposed to be, like knit to that length. So I don't know why it's like that, but I'm gonna try and do that, block it out a little bit so it doesn't balloon as much. Yeah, it's just the length. I have plenty of yarn because I'm knitting the size small. I have enough for the size medium. I almost knit the size medium, but because I was already like having to go up a needle size to a 5.5 for gauge, I was a little nervous about yarn quantity. So I was like, I'll just go with the small and then I'll block it out and it'll be fine. But yeah, that's where we're at. I like this. I think it'll be fine. Just going to block it and make sure before I, move on to all the finishing stuff. But I do love this pattern. Do I have anything else to say about it? I don't think so. But if this is how it is, if this is fine, then I'm just on to collar and button band, which is super cool. I'm really excited to wear this. This is such a good yarn combo because the Jensen is super rustic, but it gives it such good structure, and the Highland wool is much softer and less rigid. So it gives it a better feel. It's not just the ouchy rustic feel, which is cool. I'm excited about it. I love a good jacket cardigan. I'm a little tired of knitting flat, but is what it is. Next piece is my Christmas cast on, and it's on cords right now because I had to use, when I switched to the ribbing needles for this pattern, I used the Chaigu set of interchangeable needles, and I was on the 5.5. There's two different sizes of cords. There's the large ones and the small ones. And on the 5.5 needles, I had to use the size small cords. But then for the, I think it's 4.5, maybe it's 4.75, whatever the US 7 is for the ribbing, I had to use the small cords, and the small cord was on my Amy sweater, so I had to pull it off of that to do the ribbing. But that's okay because I need to try this one anyways. I have finished both sleeves on the Amy sweater because they were super quick. Yarn everywhere. The Amy sweater is, according to Ravelry, knit in a worsted weight yarn, but the worsted weight yarn that this is suggested and used is Pure Gint, and Pure Gint is a DK weight yarn. I don't really know what's up with that, but I got gauged with my sport weight yarn, which is Noro Silk Garden Sock Solo, this beautiful tweedy purple that I picked up quite a while ago that I had a sweater's quantity of, but I was originally going to knit something else. Right now, this is actually partially blocked because I needed to make sure the length of this sleeve was correct. So I think I blocked it. I blocked it probably up here before I did the ribbing because it was feeling really short, and it was short. So I'm glad I did. So now both sleeves are complete. I have to try it on with both sleeves complete to make sure that they are the right length and not like way too long either. So I'm back on the body. I have this much of my sleeve skein left and one full other skein left for the body. I'm a little nervous about quantity, but it'll probably be fine. If not, maybe it's a little cropped, or maybe I buy another skein. I would really prefer not to because this is pretty expensive when it's not like a liquidation deal like I bought this at. So we will see, but I really like this pattern. Definitely a good reason people have been knitting it. It's a nice oversized pattern, similar to the Monday sweater, but with this beautiful collar and the double rib plus that edge, which this edge, the stockinette rolled edge, doesn't really curl very well until you've blocked it. So like this sleeve is unblocked and this neck is blocked. So you can tell there's like a super big difference in how it looks. What else? Yeah. So this is going along pretty well. I'm excited to get back to my stockinette in the round knitting, but I just wanted to get through some of the Esther jacket. I felt like I needed to finish that up. Not that I wasn't enjoying the texture of the Esther. Esther is pretty easy to memorize, so I could kind of crank on it, but I did have to look at it. So I can't like read and knit while I'm working on it, and I just needed to get through that part. So that's that. Next, and that's it on 4mm needles. Next, I have a new cast on, and this is going to be a Sophie hood. It's knit in the Noro Hanui, which is leftover from my Eurus slipover, a worsted weight 100% wool yarn. The Sophie hood starts with just the beginning of a Sophie scarf or a Sophie shawl, so that's what I've been working on. I'm happy with it so far. I really want to knit the Sophie hood, and I also want to knit the Alex hood by Knitting for Olive, because I really like that style. I like balaclavas, but I also feel weird wearing balaclavas. I don't really think I'm a balaclava girl at the end of the day, but the combo of the scarf and like more of a hood feels more comfortable for me, especially because most of my jackets actually don't have hoods, so it's a good addition. I like hats, but I don't always like hats, so I'm hoping this will be like a good mix for me. Because when you have like a hair clip in or something, it's like impossible to wear a hat. And then like the other day, I didn't wear a hat because I had a hair clip in, and I was like, oh, I'll be fine. But it was really, really cold, and it was really, really windy, and I was walking home from work with my husband, and I'd been walking for quite a while in the wind, and it was really cold. It was blowing straight in my ears. And then I went inside, to like a store, and I was walking around, like a minute later, I'm like, wow, that temperature change really gave me like an earache. And then I straight up got such a bad head rush, I like almost blacked out in Whole Foods. It was like something about the pressure change in my ear made me like totally lose it. But I was fine. It was not like a serious concern. Luckily, my husband was with me. But I was like, okay, we're gonna get on hats. I need to make a few more like ear coverings so that doesn't happen again, because that would not be fun to do if I was by myself. But yeah, that's a sidetrack. But this is what I'm working on. I've knit a Sophie shawl before. I accidentally left it at my grandma's over Christmas, so I do also kind of need, before I get that back, a replacement, because it's in Maine, so it's going to be a little bit. I'm using my row counter stitch marker for this. I have it right in the middle because it's a little unwieldy at the end when I'm knitting flat. If I was knitting in the round, I could do it like at the beginning of the round, but it kind of needs to be in between stitches for this. It's been working pretty well. It's like a little heavy and kind of unwieldy because this is the one that's like got bigger loops for larger needles, which I'm fine with because it means I can use like any needles with it. But I do think it is still saving me time. Like I can knit continuously using this. Like maybe it's not as fast as if I had nothing attached to it, but it's faster than like stopping every row and marking something down. And someone said to me like, "Oh, you could just take a string and like weave it through every 5 stitches or whatever." But like different things work with for different people, and like the reason I'm not doing something like that is because with like garter stitch I literally can't tell if it's been 5 rows. So I needed something that was a little more tangible, and my only other option realistically was like tally marks. So this has been a good Christmas present, or it's working out pretty well so far. If you're someone who needs something to count with when it comes to like sleeve decreases and that kind of thing, I usually can just count if it's stockinette. It's not that hard. But with something like garter, it's really hard to see for me personally where I last increased. So it's been a big help. Yeah, this is worsted weight. I'm knitting it on, what are these, 5mm? I think so. Yeah, 5mm needles. I'm not totally sure if I have enough yarn, but if not, because it just goes up, basically we knit up over. So if I get to the end and I don't have enough, I'll just grab something else of something that matches or looks similar and finish it up. I have some other tan yarn that I think I can probably hold double and finish it with if I need to. It doesn't need to be like perfect. It's not one of those projects. It's like there's like projects that are aesthetic projects, like you want them to look a certain way, and there are projects that are just function projects. And for me, this is a function project. So, and I'm using basically leftovers. So we will see how that goes. But that is all my whips. Yes, it is. I have one acquisition this week, and that is for the sweater for my next brother. I'm knitting the Journeyman sweater by, I don't remember the name exactly. It might be Knitwits and Yarns or something like that. I'll add the name on the screen, but I'm knitting him the Journeyman sweater, which is all one color, has cabling on the top. As I've said in the past, he's a more utilitarian brother, beats his clothes up a lot. So I wanted something a little more hard wearing for him. And so the other week, I had never ordered from Hobie before, but they had a half off sale on their Friends wool. And I had been looking at Drops Alaska because it's like a worsted weight pattern, but all their colors are really heathered, and I wanted something that was less heathered for the sweater. I thought it would look better. And I don't know, I'm kind of particular about colors sometimes. Like sometimes I don't care, but sometimes there are just certain types of colors I don't like. I don't always like navies that are offered because navies can be really, really bright actually, and I don't love that. Like in the halibut sweater I knit for my husband, I think I did like a gray blue or something like that, and I really enjoyed it. And this is similar. What color is it? Color 81. I think it's denim blue. So it's this kind of like similarly, like I think it's sort of a grayish blue. It's a less of a bright tone, which I think will look a lot better on him. And the solid color will be great with that pattern, I think. So I have a bunch of that to cast on his sweater, probably after I finish the Esther jacket. I'm thinking I finish the Esther jacket. I cast that on. When I finish the Amy sweater, I'll cast on another sweater for myself that I have planned and in the works. Yeah, but this is I don't think this is superwash. I think this is just wool. Yeah, it's just wool. So that's that. I'm excited about that. It is quite soft feeling for 100% wool, so I think that'll be good for him, not too scratchy. But yeah, that should be fun. And that is my one acquisition for this week. So if you've just joined me for knitting, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you're working on. I always love to hear about it and what you're excited about this season. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I've been reading. So if that's all you were here for, thank you so much for watching. I'd really appreciate a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and I hope you have a great day. But on to books. So I finished a couple books recently. I sort of paused on my reading after the new, I finished my reading goal for the year, like right before Christmas, and then I took a break because I just needed a break. Like I consumed so many books recently, I wanted to not for a little bit. So I got back into it in the new year, and I finished two books that were interesting and beginning of series at least, so it makes more sense to talk about them. The first one was The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. And I think this is a pretty well-known book, but it was fantastic. Very well written. I really enjoyed. It is kind of dark, I will say. And I don't mean dark as in scary, but the tone of the book is very dark. It's about a girl who's an orphan and has horrible foster parents and takes this test to pull herself out of her circumstances and go to this war college and all of the trials she faces, and then the whole conflict that her country is in. And it is a very well written book. It is fantastic, but it is, like I said, a little dark. I think I might take some time before I read the next one, because sometimes you need a little break. You need a little lightness before you can continue in a series like that. I'm actually not sure if it's a series that I'll finish, despite being extremely well written. Sometimes the vibes just don't fit with what I'm capable of ingesting. There are books sometimes that I start and I'm like, I can't finish this. One example was Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. That one I read maybe a quarter of it, and I couldn't keep reading it. It was very well written, but poverty in Appalachia, I struggle to read books about that. It really gets to me. I think because I grew up in such a rural area that has sometimes a similar dynamic. It is really hard to read something like that for me. So it's not that's not my reasoning for maybe not continuing the Poppy War, but it's just a similar super duper oppressed vibe. I kind of need a happy ending, I guess is what I'm saying. Sometimes I can do an ambiguous ending, I can do an okay ending, but if I really feel like things are just going like this the whole book and it's going to be depressing the whole time, that's not really why I'm reading. Honestly, I'm not reading to be more upset and more sad. So that's kind of the vibe. I know this author also wrote Babel, which is really well known and popular. And I think I started that book, but similarly, I was like, I don't think I can do this. This is feeling really, really depressing. So I think I DNF'd that one last year. So I was kind of surprised because I liked this one more. This one was more tolerable for me, but still kind of dark. So I think I'll read the second book and then make a determination about if I can continue the series. So on a happier note, another book that I finished recently was The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. And I really enjoyed this one. It was very cute. It's kind of like a time travel contemporary romance, but it's only the apartment that she lives in time travels 7 years at a time, specifically only to the apartment 7 years forward or backwards at random times. So it's like a romance and it's cute. I was a little my one beef with the book is that the time travel wasn't super well explained or consistent. I was sort of is she changing things in the future every time she goes back? Does this other person remember? I don't know. The whole logistics of the time travel, I didn't feel were super well fleshed out, to me at least, the reader. Which I know for contemporary romance, it doesn't really matter. But for me, as someone who's read a lot of sci-fi and fantasy, I'm okay, but how? Why? What are the impacts? So that was sort of what I was thinking the whole time. But it was a good book. It's about a girl she's a publicist at a book imprint, publisher, and it's about going back and forth, and she's going through the grief process from someone she's lost in her life, and also developing this relationship with someone who's in the past but also now in her life in the present. It's a good book. I recommend. It was interesting. It was cute. It was funny. I listened to it while I was working, and yeah, that was another one that I read recently. So that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed. If you made it through the book portion, let me know what you've been reading, what you like to read. I love to hear about other people in books. I love reading a lot. I always have, but in the last 2 years or so, I've like really gotten back into it. Kind of post grad. Sometimes in school and in college, you just forget about some of those things that you love that take a lot of time, and I'm happy to be back in it. But I hope you have a great day. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It really means a lot to me, the support of this channel. It's been really cool to see it grow and all the people that comment and watch and all of that. It's just, it's so fun for me. So thank you so much for joining me, and happy knitting.